Welcome. If you're looking to get straight to the heart of things without all the noise, you're in the right place.
Hmm.
Today we're diving into, well, a really quite peculiar situation. It involves a kingdom sort of grinding to a halt because the king is heartbroken over his missing bird.
Yeah, a mayim, which is a maney bird. They're known for being quite vocal, mimicking sounds. So maybe more than just a pet.
Possibly. And our source material is excerpts from a text that really paints a picture of this king's sadness and how it affected everything.
Exactly. It's a narrative that on the surface seems simple, but it touches on some, deeper things about leadership and loss, I think.
Right. So our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to unpack this. Why did this bird cause such a fuss? Who are these two characters, Bidrup and Bankum, that pop up?
And what's this pretty unusual strategy they come up with? It's not just a story. It kind of reveals interesting bits about human nature, maybe problem solving too.
Okay, let's get into it. First off, the king's grief.
Yeah.
The text makes it sound really intense.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just, oh dear, my bird's gone.
Yeah.
The source says his distress was so deep that the royal court basically dissolved. People just, went back to their own lives.
The whole court. Wow.
Yeah, and the news spread everywhere, a king being that affected by losing a bird.
Yeah.
It's unusual, right? It sets the scene for everything that follows.
It does. And you mentioned symbolism earlier. Could the Barrier have represented something more? Peace, perhaps? Or his connection to nature?
It's possible. The text doesn't explicitly say, but the level of the reaction, the whole kingdom feeling it, suggests it wasn't just any bird. It created this void.
A void. That's a good word for it. And stepping into that void, we get these two figures, Bidrup and Bankum.
Right. Bidrup, the name suggests a mocker, someone maybe a bit cynical.
Yeah.
And Bankum, the crooked thinker.
Their names almost give the game away, don't they?
It feels like a deliberate choice in the text, yeah. Kind of foreshadowing their personalities and maybe their methods. Bidrup seeing the absurdity, Bankum finding the angle.
So what do we actually know about them besides the names?
Well, the source tells us they're basically seasonal workers,
Mm-hmm.
itinerant laborers. They harvest rice in Ashwin Karthik, that's autumn time.
Okay.
And then they do planting during the monsoon, Ashra Shraban. So they adapt. They also sometimes tell stories for money.
Storytellers, too.
Yeah, the text adds this little note that they try to be honest about it, which is interesting.
A qualifier.
Exactly. But the main thing is, the harvest season is ending when our story picks up. And because of the king's gloom, nobody's interested in stories or much else.
Ah, so their usual work has dried up.
Completely. They're facing hard times. This context is really important. It explains their motivation. They need something new.
Which leads to Bankum's big idea.
Yeah, out of the blue, he says, let's try for a permanent job at the palace.
Just like that. How?
Well, their plan is, it's bold. They build a cage, put a dove in it, not even a Moyna note, and march off to the palace.
That's a dove. Okay.
And they present themselves as experts in finding lost things, anything. People, gold, jewels, animals,
Even birds.
especially birds, conveniently enough. And they offer a guarantee.
A guarantee. That's gutsy.
It really is. It's audacious. They're basically banking on the king's desperation, playing on that hope he must have. Shows a certain cleverness, maybe a bit of cunning.
So they get to the palace, dove and all. Must have been nerve-wracking.
The text mentions they were nervous meeting the king, yeah. First time seeing him. But apparently the king already knew about them.
Oh. Word travels fast, even in a grieving kingdom.
Seems so. And the king, he doesn't waste time. He asks him straight up, can you find my Belinta?
Cuts right to the chase. What did they say? Did they promise they could?
No, they were cautious. Their response was simply, we will try.
We will try. Smart, non-committal, but hopeful.
Exactly. Buys them time, doesn't overpromise. They need to figure out the situation inside the court first.
Okay, so they've got their foot in the door. What about the terms, the reward, the risks?
Ah, yes. This is crucial. They ask for expenses, naturally, money to cover their search costs, and importantly, an upfront payment each month just for their living expenses.
So a monthly salary, essentially, while they search.
Pretty much. But then comes the king's condition, and it's stark.
Uh-oh.
If they fail to find the EMA, they'll be executed.
Executed. Wow. Okay, the stakes just went through the roof.
Absolutely. It shows how desperate the king is, willing to offer steady work, but also threaten death. And for Bidrup and Bankum, it's the ultimate gamble. A secure job versus their actual lives.
That tension really drives things, doesn't it? So they start the search.
They do. The text says they searched diligently for a whole month, looked everywhere, not just for the Chamaiti, but for any Moyna birds,
Yeah.
presumably to understand their habits or maybe find a look-alike.
But no luck after a month.
None whatsoever. And now they're facing this huge dilemma.
Right. The execution looms if they fail. But hang on. What if they succeed?
Exactly. If they actually find the bird, the king gets his Glonkas back, they probably get a reward. But the job ends, right? Their steady income is gone.
It's a proper double bind. Fail and die, succeed and lose the steady gig.
Precisely. It's in this tricky spot that Vidrup, the mocker, comes up with his, let's call it a solution.
Okay, I'm braced. What is it?
It sounds completely backwards at first. He tells Bankum, if we see any Moyna birds from now on, we kill them or drive them away.
What? Sabotage their own search. Why?
It's twisted logic, but there's a rationale, kind of. Vidrup points out something crucial.
Which is?
The king, in his grief-stricken state, set the condition for failure execution, but he never set a deadline for finding the bird.
Oh, no deadline.
Bingo. So Vidrup reasons finding the bird means the job ends, not finding the bird means death, eventually. But they actively prevent any Moyna bird from being found.
They can keep the search going indefinitely.
That seems to be the plan. Keep collecting their monthly allowance, keep the search alive, and delay the day of reckoning. They're exploiting the loophole created by the king's state of mind.
That is incredibly cynical.
Right.
And clever in a dark way.
It is. And it's right after this that Bankum has this moment of clarity. He thinks to himself, the text says, Rojar Kaimafat.
Which means?
The king has indeed lost his senses. Or lost his mind, basically.
So Bankum realizes just how irrational the whole situation driven by the king has become.
Exactly. It underlines the absurdity. The king's grief has made him vulnerable to this kind of manipulation, perhaps.
Yeah.
It raises questions about leadership during personal crisis.
Definitely. So Bidrup's crazy plan is now their official strategy.
It seems so. The text says they now knew what they needed to do, implying they're going ahead with this plan to actively not find the bird.
Wow, what a twist. So let's just recap quickly. We have a king devastated by losing his bird, creating chaos.
Yep. Then these two opportunistic guys, Bidrup and Bankum, see a chance. They offer to find the bird, get put on the payroll.
But face death if they fail.
Right. And their solution to avoid death and keep the paychecks coming is to make sure the bird is never, ever found.
It's fascinating because their solution completely ignores the king's actual problem, his grief. It's pure self-preservation.
It really highlights that clash, doesn't it, between doing the job you were hired for, addressing the actual need, and just surviving, keeping your position. What are the unspoken rules there?
Yeah, good question. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other strange solutions do people come up with when they're backed into a corner?
Is this just a quirky story? Or is it saying something deeper about, I don't know, employment itself, or how grief can warp judgment and create these weird opportunities?
Definitely food for thought. There are layers here for sure, beyond just the lost bird. Well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for exploring this with us.